very fortunate to have Mrs. Margaret Alva with us today. Without further ado, I request Professor Kiran Jeevan, the convener of today's program, to escort our guest, Mrs. Margaret Alva, and our moderator, Dr. Cherian Alexander, to the dais. A warm welcome to all of you.
She's been one among India's longest-serving parliamentarians. She has held several important positions in the government of India and has served as governor of 4 states. She has rubbed shoulders with global giants and local social activists with equal ease. The presidents and prime ministers of various countries and our own country at various levels. But what we admire about her is the fact that, in spite of all of it, she is so down to earth. She is known to be fun-loving and naughty. I've heard she was quite the mischievous one during her college days. Now that's good news for all of you. You can be mischievous in college and still turn out great leaders.
I now invite Father Brian Pereira, Vice President of the Bangalore Jesuit Education Society, Father Francis, to kindly honor our guest speaker.
I hope you're comfortable. Yeah. I mean, have you? What experience have you had previously with St. Joseph's College? I'm sure you grew up in Bangalore, and
I grew up in Bangalore, but had very little to do with the college itself. But most of our activities in the old days, when we were in Mount Carmel, boys' institutions were all banned for the good girls from Mount Carmel. But we used to have our CSU socials and CSU debates in the hall in the St. Joseph's European High School. And I tell you, we used to look forward to coming there.
that was the closest you got to SJC, St. Joseph's College.
Yeah, escorted, of course, by the nuns all the time.
Ma'am, let's go to the early years of your life. We don't know very much about those years apart from the institutions where you studied, your alma mater. We have a few photographs from your early days which represent your life. What kinds of memories well up in you when you think of those days? Is there anything specific from your childhood that probably you've never shared with anyone before, but wouldn't mind sharing with us?
Well, I was born in Mangalore in South Canada. Now, of course, a big town, those days, a very small place. And I grew up essentially in the Mangalore cultural tradition. Strict discipline, school, back, church, and all the things that go into celebrations of weddings and holidays and so on. Nothing spectacular, really. Except that I went to school only in the 3rd class. My father was in the judicial service, they used to be transferred, and I, being the youngest child, was always taken along.
Youngest of how many siblings?
We were, at that time, 4. My brother was born long after.
So that was a childhood that was quite formative in terms of...
Yeah, because there used to be different states, different languages everywhere, and we couldn't keep moving around, so we were kept in Bangalore. And I must say, I did my education with Kannada medium till the 8th standard. I learned to write my A, B, C only in the 6th class. So we had the grounding in Kannada.
Education has played a vital role in shaping you. and your formal education was in many institutions, as you said, but eventually you went to Mount Carmel College, and also you went to a law college. So how have those, that period and that educational experience, what influence has it played in your life thus far?
Well, to begin with, I was educated by nuns right up to my degree. So you can just imagine what it meant. But Mount Carmel College, the 4 years I spent there, shaped me in many ways. For one thing, I never knew I could do public speaking. I used to be on the stage acting in school, but school plays and the annual play and so on. But when I came to Mount Carmel one day, I was just chatting and walking towards Fatima Hall, which is the main hall there. It was the evening to pick the school, or rather the college debating team. And we were all walking happily to watch the fun when the English teacher, professor rather, suddenly clapped her hands, and we were looking around to see whom she was calling. And then she pointed at me and said, "Come here, you are the one I'm calling." I said, "What for?" She says, "Well, go and sit there, you will take part today." I said, "But I've never taken part in any public speaking, and I cannot speak on a public platform." She says, "You talk so much all the time, I'm sure you can do it on the stage." And she wouldn't let me go into the hall. She took me straight to sit on the side on the stage. And it was a hat night. You just had to pick up a topic from a hat and start speaking.
You can speak.
And my knees were trembling. So I was so scared of her, I didn't know which one I was most scared of, her or the stage. So I went, and I had co-education. So I just said whatever I thought I had to say, and it was over in 3 minutes. And well, I must say that when the panel was announced, I was number 1 on the panel. It's the first time in my life that I realized that I could stand up and speak. And I became part of the debating team, went on to win all the trophies for the college, became an inter-university debater, and must say that I owe it all to Mount Carmel. I must add that my principal, Mother Antoinette, once called me, I was winning all these debates and so on, exams were coming. And she says, "Margaret, no one is going to ask you how many trophies you won. They're going to ask you what class you got in your exams. So you better start working." And 25 years later, when I came to the college as a minister and chief guest for their celebrations, I quoted the principal who was sitting and said, "Mother, till today, nobody has asked me what class I got in my exams." Only my public speaking and capacity to communicate that has brought me to this stage, to this platform, and back to the college as your chief guest. She just smiled, and of course the whole audience clapped.
My next question is about the importance of debates and all these co-curricular activities in institutions, in colleges. You obviously have benefited tremendously from it, and I'm sure there are many others who have. So in this day and age, when there's in some places too much emphasis on just academics, what do you think is the role of the co-curricular and extracurricular activities?
I do think that you cannot educate the new generation in a vacuum. They have to be exposed to the reality outside, because ultimately they are being educated to go out and face the world. They're not going to be sitting inside these beautiful walls and buildings permanently. So the question of the all-round development of the student, capacity to think, capacity to choose correctly, capacity to go out and meet challenges. That's what education is all about. I have 4 children, none of them brilliant in their studies. I only told them one thing. I said, "Listen, we don't have the money to buy you professional college seats. So what you get, you will have to do. And they have been great successes without being first-rank students. So I must say, with great humility, that I was always first class first in all my exams and studies, studying on my own. But I think today, while competition and getting the grades, Delhi University has 98 and 99% cut-off marks for admission. Crazy. I mean, what does it mean? What is happening to our examination systems or to our I don't know, the whole culture of scoring marks? But I would say that for me, sports, capacity to speak, to participate in activities outside the college, outside the classroom, is very important and very much a part of education. It cannot be ignored.
Thank you, ma'am. I think that's very important for us to think about as educationists today. Now, this whole question of you have been an active public life as a woman and have excelled in a world that in those early days certainly would have been a world dominated by men.
Still is very much.
Yes, yes. What are your reflections on patriarchy and your experiences with it? And have you experienced it as a hindrance at any time in your career thus far?
But let me be honest. I got into the party at the age of 27. I was very young. It was the split of 69. Mrs. Gandhi had been expelled, and there was this excitement about doing new things. It was a left of the center agenda, and we all got drawn into this. But for me, as if by accident, my mother-in-law died in 69. And there was this vacuum suddenly, and everybody in the party said, you are educated, you are a lawyer, you have a tradition, you must step in to your mother-in-law's shoes. She was a freedom fighter, so was your father-in-law, you have a tradition. And I was actually against my will. Made a member of the party, and I was drawn into this whole, if I may say, madness of politics. But over the years, and I want to say this to you, very often it is said that, oh, children of politicians get in automatically, and I would say children of lawyers get in automatically into their father's offices, or doctors have their children move into their clinics. It happens in most professions. But in politics, you may get the entry, but you have to sustain yourself and survive. If you don't prove yourself worthy or don't have the capacity to contribute and be counted, you are out.
No godfathers needed, your own effort.
Yeah, you have to be able to prove your worth. I can tell you, political families across the spectrum. Mahatma Gandhi's granddaughter was brought by Mrs. Gandhi to the Rajya Sabha same time about that she took me. In one term, she had antagonized everybody in Gujarat, and nobody wanted her back for the second term. Lal Bahadur Shastri, these sons were given tickets. The first one won and he died later. All the others were defeated in general elections. Now, if you cannot sustain yourself and become acceptable to the people with whom you work, then you have a problem. I survived as a woman, you asked patriarchy, as a woman without big business supporting me, without money to throw around. I came in to the Rajya Sabha at the age of 31, almost the youngest ever elected to the Rajya Sabha. And remember, I was a minority, I was a woman, I was young, of course I was educated, but I was given an opportunity and I stayed on in Parliament for 30 years without a break.
Excuse me, I have a bad throat today, but we'll continue with your...
I think women give you a bit of a problem. some water?
Yeah, it's fine. I'll manage. You have a doctorate in literature, so how did you come?
No, I must be honest. It's an honorary degree. I didn't do literature. I did economics, political science, and history, and I did law later. But this was a degree conferred on me by the University of Mysore for the work I had done.
But you always loved literature.
Yes, but I was not that. The English literature group was supposed to be the very elite in Mount Carmel. We were all ordinary people doing history and economics and so on. So I was not considered all that good.
That's very difficult usually to change profession once you get married. So what was your relationship with your in-laws and how did it help your career?
Well, I must say my in-laws actually made me. I would never be in politics if it wasn't for the Alvas, who were the first couple in the Indian Parliament, who were both freedom fighters, who were lawyers, journalists, and sailors. I went into a household quite nervous in Delhi. I came from a different background. My father was a judge and I was in a very conservative, Mangalorean Catholic family. So when I went to Delhi after I was married, I was just 22 and I decided to become the good daughter-in-law, and I didn't want to do anything. I was just looking after the house, doing all the things that a good daughter-in-law is supposed to do. But my mother-in-law used to keep saying, what a waste of brains, a first-class first girl, sitting at home and darning and sewing and knitting. I mean, is this what you were supposed to do? But I was happy in my world and never thought of getting out. Even though I was first class, first law, I didn't go to a law office. I didn't want to get involved.
So no quarrels with your mother-in-law?
No, I loved her. In fact, when she died, I said, good mothers-in-law go too early. She did everything. She was a role model. She taught me so much of life, and I just loved her.
Oh, wonderful. That's something we can take away to the future. Let's hope that in this country where there's so much, that's a kind of conflict zone, this is a model relationship for us to look up to. So was there anything specific in your conversation with your mother-in-law that drove you to politics?
No, actually, I never thought of politics when she was alive. I was a very contented, happy, married woman, if I may say. But two things she told me which I have never forgotten. One is, if you ever want to be in public life or a profession, you have to learn to get ready in the morning and ready for the whole day. Because you may never have time to come and change and go here and there. It's a long day. Elegant, neat, and comfortable. You should be able to go from a funeral to a banquet if you have to, and there's no time to change.
You fought for women's rights, tried to uplift women in many, many different ways, in many roles that you occupied. By Panchayat Raj Act, marriage laws, equal remuneration, reservation for women, or you've struggled in all these areas. So what were some challenges and hurdles that you faced getting these laws passed?
The real challenge came when we were trying to push for the 33% reservation for women. That time, Rajiv Gandhi was the Prime Minister. I was Minister for Women and Child Development. And with great effort, we drafted, we worked out and did everything. When it came to the cabinet, I became the target. All these, old ministers belonging to a different generation said, "अरे ये तो औरत तुमने लाया है, वो तो UN की भाषा बोल रही है हिंदुस्तान में. ये सब नहीं चलेगा साहब. All this won't work. This is all UN ideas that she's trying to introduce." There was such an attack on me that the subject was adjourn. And then Rajiv ji said to me in the night, you know, Margaret, we have to stoop to conquer. The bill wanted to do it at one stroke from panchayats to parliament. He said we have to stoop to conquer. Let's start with the panchayats and move up next.
Stage by stage.
Yeah. So we introduced the bill for the Panchayati Raj, local bodies. And it was defeated in Parliament. The opposition united and defeated the bill. That was the last effort of Rajiv's to get it passed through. A bill passed, and so it was dropped. It was only after he died and the VPC government fell and P.V. Narasimha came back that we reintroduced the bill, passed it, and we today have more than 15 lakhs of women elected to local bodies all over the country.
That's a tremendous achievement.
Which is a very great achievement, and I must say, all independent reports say that the agenda in the local bodies has changed.
You can see this thick book over here. This will certainly be at least 10 hours of reading time if you're a speed reader. And I think ma'am's life it's called Courage and Commitment. It's an autobiography by Margaret Alva. So she, maybe a word or two about that?
I just want to read the last page. This is my life, my struggle, my ups and downs, my highs and lows, my successes and failures. But through it all, I stood brave and bold, never faltering in my commitment to speak up for what I believed was right and never afraid to defend the truth.
Thank you. That's self-confidence born out of a life of integrity and commitment and dedication to a wide range of struggles. Thank you very much, ma'am. It was wonderful having you here as our guest this evening.
It was wonderful being here with the open heart. I saw all those who received me in red. I said, why are you in red? They said, because the heart bleeds. The women were all in red, but the men were all with white shirts. I said, don't the men have hearts also that bleed? They are waiting for the women's hearts to bleed for them, I said. And maybe that's the whole idea. Thank you for having me here. I've enjoyed it. I would have loved to have an interaction with you, take questions from you, but maybe some other time. Thank you very much.